Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Leela Life Show. I am your host, Linda Andrews. Blessed to be here with you today. I have Anita Mirchandani with us today with ARM Nutrition, and very excited to have some curious conversations about the power of nourishment, nutrition, high performance, understanding your body. Welcome, Anita, to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Linda. I'm so excited to be here and talk through all things wellness.
Yes, all things wellness. I find, especially for founders, that wellness is probably an art and a science, finding that balance and precision and what's working and what's not. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and your story that got you to this moment, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm 42. Yep, I admitted my age. I started this journey actually in fitness. I was very, very into exercise as a form of, just like stress release and, one of those therapies that, gave me the real endorphins that we all read about. So in my mid-20s, I was working at a job and I was really unhappy in this corporate position, but the position provided a stipend of, I think it was close to $1,000 that I could use on continuing education. I decided to use it towards getting certified in teaching indoor cycling, spinning classes. And that allowed me to then audition for a position at a handful of gyms. And I was living in Manhattan at the time. And so I was auditioning at like the New York sports clubs, New York Health and Racket. And I got a handful of, opportunities to teach at all the different gyms. And I would say, rocking and rolling in the big gym world because indoor cycling then led to group conditioning, led to kickboxing, so it just kept growing, and then personal training. But, throughout this entire fitness experience, I would get asked several questions about nourishment, nutrition. What should I eat? How should I fuel? What's the best thing for weight loss after workouts like this? Or how do I pair, my intake with my, burning, like how many calories I'm burning and things like that. And I remember being like, I feel like I can tell people what I do, but I don't have an exact, like, I don't know how to suggest to people what's individualized. So I went to NYU for my undergrad. I started doing research on nutrition programs and what was out there. And first, I embarked on the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And that was interesting because it was the first year, I was the first, graduating class. And it was, I came out of it having a bunch of literature and the idea of how to talk to people because it was a coaching program. But I was so confused still in the world of like nutrition science.
Mhm.
So I decided to continue my research and I found that NYU had a master's program in clinical nutrition and I applied. And I remember getting rejected and being like, what? Wow. And then I spoke to the director and he was like, you don't have any of the science credits. Like you have no background. Like to start nutrition. And I was like, well, what do I need? He's like, chemistry, anatomy. And I was like, my eyes lit up. He's like, this is weird. You're getting weirdly excited. I'm like, I actually love biology and chemistry and anatomy and physiology. And it would have been like, I was one of the subjects I really wanted to major in, but I never actually took the leap. So I went back to the drawing board, got all my prerequisites done, and then I got into the program. And basically in 2011, I became a dietitian and started my journey in clinical, like working with the hospitals, and then kind of evolved into a startup experience that infused nutrition and fitness. It was kind of like the ClassPass, but before ClassPass became big, it was called Classtivity, and we were a competitor of Classtivity. So we were on the startup scene for a handful of probably, I would say, 2 full years, and then it didn't work out. But around that same time, my husband launched the first Greek yogurt in India.
Wow.
So think Chobani, think Faye, think Siggy's, but it's a local Indian brand. It's called Epigamia. And he was like, I'm gonna do this. And I was like, are you sure? Like, are we gonna really like India is a whole other ball game. And we are, South Asian. So he was like, but you could really help with the nutrition aspect of educating, finding the language and the nutrition communications on educating the community why they should buy Greek yogurt. Because it's a predominantly vegetarian community and a lot of people make their yogurt at home. But how do we encourage this as a packaged product to become popular?
Mhm.
So I worked on creating a program, kind of like an ambassador program with local dietitians and created content and language around how to get the brand out there. What are the things to call out? How do we emphasize the nutrients that are in Greek yogurt in a packaged product? And how do we emphasize that this is a great snack, and talk about the multifaceted use for Greek yogurt in general, like marinating chicken for tandoori chicken, or making a yogurt dip for a party, etc. So that was great, and that led to a lot of introductions in the food startup space, and that gave me a handful of consulting opportunities, which was ideal because I was going back and forth between Mumbai and New York with my little, by then I had my first son. And so we
Oh,
were traveling back and forth. So I wanted to do something that, engaged my mind after all the education, but I knew I couldn't commit to anything physical. So it was an amazing amount of remote opportunities that kept, diversifying. And then I got pregnant with my second son, and then sort of stayed in New York City and kind of went back to the private practice nutrition counseling world. Then COVID happened and we left the city, and now we're in Westchester County, which is outside of New York City, in Scarsdale. It's a beautiful community. My kids are in local school now, and I started my nutrition telehealth practice. And the interesting thing about nutrition, the evolution of nutrition services, is that, back in the day, I would say probably when I was coming out of um, my master's, nutrition was one of those things that was like, if you had the money, you could hire a dietitian. You could hire somebody who could help you eat healthy. And you think about health and you think about nutrition, and so much of how we are and what our bodies respond to, food is responsible for that. So for that not to be something included in, for example, an insurance benefit was mind-boggling, because people would always be like, do you take insurance? And most dietitians would be like, no, we don't deal with insurance. That's just paperwork. But I found, a company that helped, credential additional healthcare professionals, and I got insured, and I'm in network now with a handful of insurance providers. And I'm also licensed in multiple states. So now I can see people from various parts of the US who have insurance, and I can, bill the insurance and they get to use their benefits. And a lot of times, for example, with insurance providers and payers such as Aetna or Cigna, it'll say like X client or X patient has 8 sessions covered in a calendar year, and copay is $50. And so you know that that's great, because they can use
mm-hmm.
8 sessions in 12 months. They can really figure out what kind of nutrition, how they want to optimize and their wellness plan. Insurance pays for it. I get reimbursed, and it's a good flow. So I think that's what's helped me grow locally, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people want to utilize their insurance and take advantage of having this proactive preventative wellness care. They want to be ahead now and be more, because everything before was reactive. Oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with XYZ. Now I need to see a dietitian. But now it's like, I don't want to get to that point. The doctor told me my risk is growing, or I know that my mom had it at 45. I don't want to get it at 45. And so these are the types of questions that are coming to me, and I'm able to like sort of work through. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm doing my telehealth practice, and I do some handful of consulting and writing. And I'm building some local seeded grounds with the community as a resource at my son's school, volunteering in various wellness opportunities as well.
Amazing. And you have access to, I think, some of the world class produce, being so close with the Hudson Valley. I was recently up near the Catskills and had some mouth-watering strawberries that I can still taste when I think about them. I'm like, why doesn't all food taste this rich? Why?
We're a farmers market Sunday. We scour. There's so many beautiful markets out here, and on
Oh,
Sundays, me and my little one, he loves to go, and he like loves to pick the produce. That's what we do in summertime season, pretty much from like end of May until September. It's like my favorite thing to do.
yeah, it's so good. And I'm curious for you, I mean, what a testament to the shifts from when you first were getting started to now insurance looking at this more proactively. I mean, that's tremendous. Do you incorporate any of the testing, like functional medicine type of testing in your practice?
So I don't actually affiliate with any one brand. I definitely, so I have, all healthcare practitioners can tie up with various brands
Mhm.
and, give a code, and like if it's pertinent. So there are a handful of um clients that might, through the process, like if they're going to be figuring out an elimination diet, if they're,
Mhm.
so it depends. Like if it's gut health focused, I tend to recommend a couple of different types of testing. If it's not gut health focused and they've already known what they if they already know what they've been diagnosed with, then, I get the results and I can analyze all the results and then pair that, nutritionally. So I've done a handful of immunoglobulin testing. I've gotten results. As I said, I don't work with any one particular brand, but I can, analyze the skin pricks and also simple reactions. Like some people may not have had a reaction to something for 3 decades. And on the
Mhm.
fourth decade, they're like, all of a sudden now I can't eat tomatoes. When I eat tomatoes, I get like a itchy feeling in my throat. Or, I used to be able to eat, a Brazil nut every day, but now my tongue starts to feel like really, really dry. Like there's reactions that happen in our body as we age.
Mhm.
And so I can help analyze all of that. And I love testing. Like the more data that you come to me with, it's
Mhm.
amazing. It's like solving a case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, the investigation. Let's see what we have going there. What is the most common things that you're seeing? You mentioned gut health. What are people struggling with the most that you see?
I am seeing a lot of unwanted weight gain in
Mm.
various ways. And it's sad because a lot of these clients are not doing it to themselves.
Hmm.
It could be stress, it could be the hyper-focused day-to-day lifestyle that they're leading, with the, go, 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 lack of time, type vibe. And I'm seeing, and a lot of it is probably correlated to gut health. I do a ton of gut health cleansing type protocol and
Hmm.
diets and advice. I also have a huge, I specialize in women's health. So I have a
Hmm.
lot of female clients, anywhere from postpartum, well, fertility, but I'm seeing a lot more postpartum now, postpartum shift into perimenopause. So, and it could just be that because I'm 42, I'm getting a lot of people in the late 30s to like early 40s, because you kind of resonate with somebody who is kind of potentially going through or knows what you might be going through.
Hmm.
So it's kind of how I guess people feel that comfort and connect. And so I'm getting a lot of those types of phases, and a lot of it's understanding what shifts have happened in the body, how do you address them nutritionally, and it's what can we take out that is causing stress on your body and causing you to be, and produce an inflammatory response, and how do we kind of come around that? So I'm seeing a lot of women's health cases as well in that phase.
Something I probably think about too much, and I try to be mindful of the stress I'm causing in my inner space because of the thoughts I'm about to share with you. But I just can't get over the toxins that it seems like are everywhere. And it freaks me out. We had a water scare a few years ago in South Florida that our tap water was not viable, even from filtered or boil water. It was like that bad. Filter or boil wouldn't help it. There was some bacteria in the water. And they said if you're predisposed to any kind of neurology, history, which I have. So I was like, oh my gosh. And my dog and I both got sick, and it was noticeable. It was digestive. And you wonder, like, what are the long-term impacts of that? And that's from a water scare they're admitting. Like, what else is going on? And so I,
100%.
like get this spring water now. And I'm just like, a little. So I understand the stress that I could be causing myself from overthinking about toxins, but I think this is a really real thing. It's like the toxins are everywhere and in everything. Something silly as aluminum cans. I'm like, they think that aluminum is bioaccumulative in our systems from
Yeah,
different things. Why are aluminum cans out there? I just don't get it. And these are some of the things I think about, but I'm just curious how you approach toxin and the toxic loads. And I'm assuming that connects to women's health and the hormone health.
100%. There's a huge relationship between that. I mean, I'd like to start by saying that we are on trying to, I mean, I would love to say I'm trying to unravel, 50 years of the food industry,
Hmm.
for so long it was like, what can we create that can be mass produced, that can be available to everyone, that could be an affordable price point.
Hmm.
And then it went from the extreme of, well, we have that world, and then we have the organic world where everything is triple the price. And then we had the whole skepticism, like, what is truly organic? Are we
Hmm.
really buying organic?
Hmm.
And then we come down to the what's local and seasonal and farm to table, low carbon footprint, what's easy to get and accessible just right from your backyard, like what's available, farms and those types of things.
Hmm.
And so would like to say that I probably start with talking to people about what is it that they typically like to consume, and then how do we acquire that in the most easy way, like facilitate the easiest ways to get XYZ.
Mhm.
Number one, it's great for, budgeting and financial responsibility. And number two, it's great for just knowing that these products are not going to be, pumped with, preservatives or other chemicals and things like that because of where it has been sitting for XYZ amount of time.
Mhm.
And also like, for all my clients that have just gone through, pregnancy and have newborns, it's a great start for them because, not that I don't understand the need of having jarred baby food, but it starts at that age. Like,
Mhm.
can we start giving our kids just, pureed of like pureed pear? Do we have to buy the cans and the jars and things that have
Mhm.
been sitting on a shelf for so long? Like, because
Mhm.
your child, your gut, the gut bacteria that we develop, the microbiome that is so important for the rest of our life, is formed by age 3. So believe it or not,
Oh.
between 1 and 3, when you're starting to really embrace and eat the foods and get all the introductions, which is why like the concept of baby-led weaning is so effective, because even if your child's not eating that, it's getting a taste for it. It's getting a piece of that bacteria from the food for it. And so I just think that that's something that I always try to resonate with when I'm counseling people and talking to them about stuff. But beyond that, there's the stress from technology, there's the stress from products usage, whether it's like, household products or bath and body products or makeup products. And so it's kind of helping people kind of become more simplistic and
Mhm.
minimalistic in their life as well. Like, what are
Mhm.
things that we can eliminate that could be causing this upon you? And what are things that we can eliminate in terms of food that are not giving you and making you feel great? And how do we get that in a balanced approach? I call it the 80-20 rule. So
Mhm.
80% of the time, you're really structured and you have a routine. And it doesn't matter if the routine is the same every day, because if it's working for you,
Mhm.
it's doing well for your body, why not? 20% of the time, you're going to have travel. You're going to have social events. You're going to have your health might suffer.
Mhm.
You might get sick. You might have various obligations in your career. So there are times where you just can't stick to that ideal routine, ideal time, ideal meal, ideal frame. So that's kind of how I put everything into perspective.
Working with your actual life. Like it can't be this strict structure. Because I think too, some of that can create a whole other level of stress and so much,
Yes.
right? It's like comes back to the stress and that management. Are there any practices that either you do or you recommend to help with the stress that you find extremely helpful?
So I tend to, for a while, like the craze was always like, what's the next hottest workout, right? Like, because I come from the fitness background.
Yeah.
And so I've started to help people understand that, like, not everything that you read is going to be like working for you. And that comes from like a food pattern. It could be like, oh, what do you think about this whole paleo thing? Or what do you think about keto? Or what do you think of? And it's like, well, what do you like? You're asking me this because you're interested in this. So let's figure out, is this really for you? So I think the one of the biggest ways to manage stress and that whole process is to figure out what is causing you to get inflamed. What is
Mm.
giving you an inflammatory response? Number one, could it be the fact that you're drinking alcohol after 7 p.m. versus
Mhm.
5 p.m.? Yes,
Mm.
maybe. Could it be that you're eating a heavy meal at 7:30 at the end of your workday instead of having a light meal and having nourishment throughout the day? Could it
Mhm.
be that you're adding too many high intensity workouts really early in the morning because you're forcing yourself to wake up at 5 because you want to get that workout out of the way because you think that workout is actually beneficial, but it's not. So
Mhm.
it's a lot of these things to figure out what it is that's actually causing this inflammation and how do we dial it back.
That's interesting. I think as entrepreneurs, there's so much more flexibility in the lifestyle than say often an employee. And it's like a gift, maybe a privilege to have that experience. And you have to mentally like deconstruct a schedule to refine a schedule that could work for you. That's been my own experience. And it's interesting going through that because you can change everything. I was talking to my brother yesterday and I said, yeah, if I could finish eating at 5 every day, say 6 at the latest, like that would be my choice. And he's just like, I just can't even wrap my head around that. And I'm just like, stopping eating before bed if I want to be asleep by 9-ish, like that's what that would mean. And we were laughing. He's like, I just can't even go there. And it's like,
Well, I
yeah,
get
but
joked about like, oh, Anita's doing the early bird special all the time because I'm
yeah,
like,
but
you do a 5:30 dinner, and everyone's like, what? That's absurd.
I'm like, please don't make me eat at 8 or 8:30 and like get the dessert in. Like we have a farm by us here. Shout out to Sutton Milk Farms. I'm convinced it's the best ice cream on the planet out of
Ooh,
Okeechobee, Florida. But it truly, it's like the creamiest,
the
richest. I'm sure you
creamiest,
get
yeah.
some of that up there.
In Hudson, you got to, for me,
Yeah.
you got to drive a good 30 minutes, but it was delicious ice cream.
Yeah, but that, getting that earlier in the day versus so if I'm like having my dessert midday and I'm like, oh, good, but it feels like getting the sugar to get through my system versus right before bed, similar to the alcohol, that makes sense is these little lifestyle swaps. But I think
Hmm.
what we face is it's so counter to the norm and the rest of society and how things are typically done in, that 9 to 5 happy hour dinner lifestyle.
It's because of the way that the work world, the career world, the professional world has sort of I would say that the constraints that they put on people's schedules and the
Hmm.
demands of the
Hmm.
job.
Hmm.
Maybe COVID, that era and being able to do remote changed some of that and allowed people to be able to, I think, once coming out of the remote era, advocate for themselves. No, I don't want to commute into work anymore because I can do this job effectively. I'm delivering. There's no reason why I have to show, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, something like that. So I think it's given a lot of people leverage to negotiate the type of schedule that they want because they've realized that by like not having that commute stress, it
Hmm.
allowed them to optimize and have a better quality of life and
Hmm.
pace. Maybe they're
Hmm.
not doing everything that they could do, but they're certainly doing one or two things better.
Hmm.
So I definitely think that that is something to always keep in mind.
Where's your favorite place to start with people when a new client comes to you? Where are you usually starting?
I like to talk to people about their health history and kind of their connection to their genetic predisposition because
Mm.
sometimes people get so, I mean, I've got several people come in with fears and like, I was told by my doctor that I have this. And I'm like, okay, let's dial it back. Let's calm down.
Mhm.
What are your numbers? And then I walk through the numbers with them. And see, the thing about nutrition is that because we are so focused on proactive and preventative care in a holistic way, food is medicine, we tend to look at various angles for something. Let's take high cholesterol for an example.
Mm.
So I'll get a client that's like, oh, I have high cholesterol. And I'm like, okay, what's your cholesterol? And they'll tell me their lipid panel. And I'll be like, okay, well, let me explain something to you. You're probably recommended to take a medication because of this number exceeding the limits. Let's start by history. When I was 20, the limit of this, for example, LDL, the low density lipoprotein, which is what everyone gets put on a statin for, the limit for that was 150. Okay. And probably this was like in my mid 20s. Probably around my mid 30s, it dropped to 130. Okay. Became more strict.
The
Now
guideline.
the guidelines, and
Okay.
now it's 100.
Wow.
Now there's two ways to look at this. Number one, I'm going to just throw it out there. What are pharmaceutical companies trying to do?
Uh,
Are they trying to push medication now because they want the numbers to be stricter so that people
wow.
got getting scared more so that the red flags keep coming up and they're
Yeah, the
like,
reference point, like, hey,
"Yeah,
you're high, but it's changed 40 points in 20 years.
exactly. And we've actually gotten healthier in the last 10 years and just the availability of stuff.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, what are we looking at here? We're looking at cholesterol, but that's related to heart disease or heart risk. So what other parameters can we assess to really tell you that you're truly at risk? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, let's evaluate this marker and this marker and this marker and this marker. And
Mhm.
when you get those results back, I'm going to have you see a cardiologist. And when you get those results back, let's put everything in perspective. And
Mhm.
I would say probably 8 out of 10 times, there's no risk.
Wow.
So
Painting the fuller picture.
yes. So, and I read this really good book, which I'm forgetting the name now, but I will share it with you maybe after this call. But It's a book on statins, and it's a book really helping people understand like medication is essential for some people, but you have to really understand at what point do you need to get that medication, and at what point can we really stay true to diet, exercise, lifestyle modification, managing stress, and sleep. And it really gives you a good perspective on what that line is,
Mhm,
when you need to cross that line into medication, and when it actually makes sense.
mhm,
So by no means am I saying that if you need it, you should not be on it, but
mhm.
there's an approach to it before you get to that point.
And even I am by no means a medical or pharmaceutical expert, but I'm in the understanding around from some of my just curiosities in life, something like a statin, there can be side effects that can have major issues that, outweigh potentially the good that is happening. And with any medication, it's outweighing those risks with the reward. And sometimes understanding the risks, it's not a full picture that we get to understand the risks. It's like understanding the risks of something. Where do you find the truth of the risks? And that story can be somewhat limited in understanding.
Well, Linda, this is the problem, right? For years, a dietitian professional was somebody that you had to pay so much money to talk to
Mhm,
because we weren't valued by the medical institution or as a support system to doctors.
mhm,
And so people didn't know any better to understand how to really get help and understand what's really the problem.
mhm,
And now it's accessible,
mhm,
but very few people know that it's accessible
mhm.
because I mean, we're getting there. I would say we're
Right,
a
right.
long way, but nutrition science should be the first line of defense for
Mhm,
everybody. What
mhm,
are things that we can do? And it could also just be that like we're also wired by habit. That's so many of us, like I have clients like, oh, do I have to stop drinking coffee every morning? And I'm like, no, but what is coffee doing for you? And can we
mhm,
change the time of coffee? And can we change the concoction of the coffee that you're drinking? And can we modify it a little bit on portion? And then they're like, actually, yeah, we could do some of that. You can
mm,
still have your cake and eat it too.
mhm,
And so, I think that that's the line. And even for statins, for example, just going back to that, what's it doing? It's designed to lower cholesterol in the body, but cholesterol is a really good thing in certain cells, especially our brain. So the minute that
mm.
you are lowering the cholesterol production, your brain is not getting the cholesterol that it needs,
Wow.
which then kind of like rejigs a lot of stuff that happens.
Mhm.
It's an inevitable byproduct.
Right. Oh, and next step, you have XYZ with your brain going on. And oh, couldn't see that coming. Well, we could have if you're getting rid of the cholesterol you needed for healthy brain function.
Yeah, so it's just, it's like a very weird, I would say with weird paths. And so that's why I love doing podcasts and talking and connecting with so many like-minded individuals because I don't preach by any means, but I do like to say that use us as your first line of defense.
Mm.
Ask those questions, clarify those thoughts.
Hmm.
What is really happening and what are you really trying to get to the bottom of? And how
Be
can
the
we?
sounding board, the second
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
You mentioned lifestyle modification, and I feel like there's so much a person can do before they go in a more traditional medical route. But the things you have to do take changes and maybe take some education, take some time, take some readjusting your life. How do you help people make those adjustments? You mentioned the have your cake and eat it too. So it sounds like you're gifted at meeting people where they are.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in balance because I think that anything extreme is not sustainable and it takes the joy out of things. Like
Mhm.
you need to be able to enjoy your life. Like if you really like that glass of wine, how do I get you to have it without making all the hard work that you've been working towards go to waste? And
Mm,
so I always first talk about what goals people have. Like what is it that you can't compromise on or you don't want to compromise on and you want to figure out a way to have it, but and so we talk through what those habits are. But
mhm,
also, it's about educating people on what their bodies are doing. For example, we all have a natural circadian rhythm,
mhm,
which means our bodies wake up at a certain time and they go to bed at a certain time. In order to make people understand what habits they need to change, you have to explain to them how their body functions. And for example, you go to work and you know that at 5 o'clock you're out of there. You got to go maybe pick up the kids, maybe you got to pick up some groceries, you're going to go make dinner for your family, whatever. And then you get a call from your boss at like 6:15 and your boss is like, "Hey, Linda, actually there's a report that I need and I totally forgot to tell you earlier, but do you think you could work on it and get it to me in a half an hour and then you can go home?" Well, it's like you telling it's a very similar analogy to you telling your body, hey, um, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, I'd love to eat at like 7:30 tonight. And can you digest the 1.5 cups of pasta that I've had, the 2 cups of veggies, and like the 3 portions of rice that I've had? Plus, like, I kind of want a piece of chocolate and maybe a glass of wine. Can you break all that down for me and then get it to my large intestine and then, make me feel good and so I can sleep tonight? No, your body's going to be like, hold the front door. I can't work at this time. You need to work on my clock or else I can't do it effectively for you. And so that's the analogy that I always try to explain to people because I'm like, you're pushing your body and giving it a strain. You need to dial it back. You need to,
Wow, that's such a good.
yeah, you need to figure out how to not strain your body. And so, and also like, ask yourself the question, like I always get told, I don't feel good. I feel bloated. I don't have a lot of energy. Well, you know why you don't have a lot of energy? Because your body is you're forcing your body to do things at a time it doesn't want to do it. If you
Mm,
let it rest, it can recharge and give you that energy that you need to wake up in the morning, the quality of sleep that you need. And as we age, the quality of sleep is finite.
mhm,
It's no longer like 10 hours as it was as a kid. It's really, anywhere from 5.5 to 7.5 good hours of quality sleep for most people.
mhm,
So in order to get that though, you really have to work backwards and sort
mhm,
of figure out what it is in the daytime, the habits that you can control to give you that quality of sleep at night.
mhm. Wow, it's like backing out from the wind down and recalibrating everything to support that.
Yes.
That's so interesting. That's very interesting. And it you can see quickly how 1 or 2 days can throw that all off.
So I was going to say 1 or 2 days can throw it off, and that's okay.
Mhm,
Because if you do work towards this 80/20 rule,
mhm,
by the time that one day kicks in, you're
mhm,
going to not love how you're feeling, that you're going to
mhm.
crave to go back to that balance. And that's the thing, that's the beauty of it. Like you let your body speak for itself, and then you start seeing the results, and then you're like, okay, I had a couple of glasses of wine yesterday. I socialized with my friends. I had a fun dinner catching up with XYZ. I just need to go to bed early today. So I'm just going to do a light dinner and then I'm going to just call it a day and go to bed early. And then I'll rejig myself. And then 3 more days later, you'll have another mojo and you'll be like, I can go out again and I can do this again. And so that's the flow that you need to create.
Finding that rhythm
Hmm.
and listening to the feedback loop.
Yes, absolutely. It's huge.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, thank you, Anita. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. These are some of my favorite conversations. So thank you so much for being here. Any closing thoughts? And we'd love to know where everyone can find you. We'll have that in the show notes as well. But first, closing thoughts for the audience that you think could move the dial for their health and well-being today.
Yes, I do would like, for me, I always tell people, you're going to come with burning questions. You just have to be patient and know that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Mm,
And depending on whatever age it is that you embark on this journey, you are going to move towards having a good quality of life for X amount of years, whatever that is for you. So it takes time and practice to initiate and execute all of these good habits. And so I always tell people that because people, I think, want everything to happen overnight. We're an impatient society.
mhm,
And so that's not how health and wellness works. And what you see and the amount of time that you put in, you will reap the benefits of it. And I predominantly, my fourth decade, so I grew up in the 80s. So you can pretty much predominantly find me. I have a website, which is my first name, last name, AnitaMirchandani.com, or Instagram. That's pretty much the only social media that I can, handle. And
yeah.
it's at FitNut Anita. So
Amazing,
FITN.
Anita. Thank you so much for sharing your story and some of these insights. I know something will have landed, and it did for me at least. Thank you. And thank
Thank
everyone for
you.
tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Leela Life Show.